Hello, so I saw your question in the forum about stretching objects that aim at something, and I'm gonna show you a simple joint-based setup to do so. I'm using joints because that's just the most robust way of doing this. First, I'm in the rigging toolset, as you can see on the left. I'm gonna go to skeleton, create joints. Then I have wireframe unshaded on, so I see where my vertex positions are, so I can easily snap to them. And then I hold down the V key to snap to the vertex and snap to the bottom and to the top. Now I have two joints, one at the bottom and one at the top of my object. I'm gonna quickly rename those joints so I don't lose track of my different objects. The next thing I'm gonna do is skin my cylinder to the joints. Then I go to skin, bind skin, open the options box, and first I'm just gonna reset the settings because I don't need anything crazy here. I need the top row of vertices to stick to the top joint, and need the bottom vertices to stick to the bottom joint. And because that probably didn't give me a perfect weight painting, I'm gonna quickly check the paint skin weights tool how my weights look like. So now that I have it open, as you can see, there's a gradient going for both joints. I don't want that. I want the top joints to be 100% following the child joint and the bottom joints to be 100% following the parent joint. So I'm gonna select the vertices. I also have joints turned off in my selection so I don't accidentally select the joints. And then I'm just selecting the top row of my vertices and I'm gonna flood them with a value of 1 to the child joint. As you can see, it's turned white, which means that there's 100% value on those vertices for that joint. I'm doing the same for the bottom as well, then flooding them to the different joint. Now I have the setup I want, and the bottom should now stick to the bottom joint and the top to the top joint. So if I select the joint and move it around, as you can see, it stretches the cylinder, which is what we are going to utilize to do our stretching. I'm going to create IK handle to manage the aiming. Instead of an aim constraint, I make sure that this is a single chain solver and the other settings are just default, and then I'm going to select my parent joint in the outliner and then Command or Control select my child joint, and this will automatically create the handle, which I'm going to rename now so I can keep track of my object. Then I select the locator and I hit the P key to parent it under the locator. So now when I move the locator, the handle will follow, and to make sure it's at the same position, I zero out the translates in the channel box. So now when I move my locator, the cylinder aims at it. The last thing we need to do now is the stretching. And for the stretching, I first need to know the distance between the 2 points. For that, I'm creating a measure tool. I hold down the V key to snap to the lower joint, and then I hold down the V key to snap to the locator. And this, with the distance tool, it automatically selects the locator as one of the locators for the distance. Because the bottom joint isn't the locator, it creates a locator for that. And as you can see, it shows me the distance between those 2 points in space now, which is what we're going to utilize to make the stretching. Make sure display shapes are turned on because we are going to use an attribute from the shape. So I'm going to open the connection editor. As you can see left, it already loaded in my shape. In my outputs, and in my inputs I now want the child joint. And I want his main axis, which is translate x in this case, because translate x is the only axis that has a value on it. If your joints are oriented correctly, only one of the translates should have a value. This value may changes for you. Maybe it's in Y or in C. That doesn't really matter. Just connect the translate attribute that has the value on it. So I'm selecting distance, and then I'm looking for my translate attributes. It's grayed out because translate attribute is a vector with 3 floats, and distance is just 1 float attribute. So I need to expand it so I can see my translate x, which is also just a float x attribute, so I can connect them. And now, as you can see, it automatically stretched to where my locator is. And I'm turning display shapes off because I don't need it anymore. And as you can see, it now does what you want, but we still need to do a little more, because right now the locator and the joint don't follow each other, so the initial point could get out of whack if you move the joint, which means we need to have them parented under the same object. You can't just parent the locator to the joint because it will get a cyclic connection, and that will in this case not be much of a problem, but it will cycle check you all the time, so you want to avoid that. So I parent my joint under a group using Command G, and then I'm also parenting the locator and the distance dimension tool to that group. So everything is neat in there. And then I'm gonna hide the locator and the distance dimension tool, just gonna set the visibility to off. And yeah, that's the setup. I hope it helps.